LinkedIn News.
Hey everyone, it's Leah popping into your feed to share an episode of a brand new podcast from LinkedIn and iHeart Podcasts. It's called Let's Talk Offline, and the show is all about what it takes to thrive in the early years of your career, looking at you, Gen Z, without sacrificing your values, your sanity, or your sleep. Now, I know I would have really benefited from something like this back when I was starting out. I also recommend it because the show is co-hosted by my friends and colleagues Gianna Prudenti and Jamae Jackson Gadsden. And in the first episode of the series, they're talking about how to overcome that not enough experience barrier to landing a first job, which I remember oh so well. If you like what you hear, be sure to follow or subscribe to Let's Talk Offline wherever you listen to your podcasts. Or if you know someone who's still looking for answers on some of those early career questions, text them a link to the show. New episodes drop every Tuesday. So with that, here's Let's Talk Offline.
I had an engineer once who was specifically working in Python and was looking for roles that were heavily using Python. His resume did not say Python anywhere. And when I asked why, he said, well, I thought it was obvious. We forget that the recruiters have not done the jobs that they are hiring for. So if you don't say it and you don't point it out, they're going to assume you don't have it.
Wow. I hope everyone heard that, because I definitely would leave things out and be like, well, of course I would have it.
I still leave things out now. Like, we just naturally assume, oh, right, the person would just know. No, they don't, baby. It's like if someone likes you, like, they can't just assume that, you like them. You got to tell them.
Oh, God. From LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts, this is Let's Talk Offline. I'm Gianna Prudenti.
And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. You guys, this is a brand new podcast, and Gianna and I are super excited to help you navigate your work life. I want you to think of her and me as your two new work besties. We're going to be having super honest and real conversations and answering the questions that you might not feel comfortable asking your manager, coworkers, or even your best friend.
And we've got lots to cover. Negotiating your pay, setting boundaries, making friends in the office. All those unspoken rules of work. This is Let's Talk Offline, a show about what it takes to thrive in the early years of your career without sacrificing your values, sanity, or sleep. Today we're talking all about applying for jobs and the many, many challenges that come with that. Specifically, what you should do if you feel like you just don't have enough experience for the job. Imagine you're looking at a job opening for an entry-level position. You're going through the job description and it's looking good, but all of a sudden you see that one requirement that stops you. It says, this job requires 3+ years of experience.
Dun, dun, dun.
And you're like, well, I'm a new grad, or maybe I'm early in my career and I'm making a pivot. How the heck am I going to land this job when it requires 3+ years of experience?
Oh, we've all been there before.
We've all been there. And listen, we're going to talk to you today about why all experience is valid. And joining us in just a bit is Morgan Sanner. She is Resume Official on TikTok. And she's going to tell us how we can all effectively tell our stories to show employers why we are the right candidates for the jobs. But before we get into that, Jamae, I think we should introduce ourselves. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't you start us off?
Okay, cool. Hey, y'all. So I am Jamae Jackson Gadsden. I went to Howard, and then when I graduated a couple years later, I got my master's in business at LAM College here in New York. For the past decade, I've been working in media, the arts, the entertainment space. I am an actor. So a lot of my work has been figuring out, well, how do actors and creatives show up, and how do we talk to each other, and how do we market our services? And that's kind of a little bit about what I do at LinkedIn too. I get to do things like host workshops, and I essentially get to coach people on how they can show up authentically on the platform and remove that nasty ick out of like tooting their own horn, baby, because let me tell you, that horn will get you paid. Okay. What else? I'm a dog mom of 3, and I also love anything that is scary. So if you love scary things, scary movies, TV shows, genres, YouTube channels, send me everything. Let us bond together in scary secrecy. Gianna, what about you?
Okay, so I don't like horror. Something about me is not my vibe. I'm more of a rom-com gal, but we'll get into that later.
I like scary rom-coms.
That sounds like my worst. Don't ruin the genre for me. Okay, so I graduated college in 2021, which, well, I was going to say that makes me a recent grad, but I think I need to retire the term. It's time to give it up. But I studied journalism at Syracuse University, and if my parents had it their way, I'd be an accountant. No shade to accountants, but it just wasn't the life for me. You know, I wasn't there to crunch numbers all day. And so since then, I've been at LinkedIn for 3 years now. I was first an intern, I was on a contract, and then I went full-time. And so my job's changed quite a bit in between all of that. But right now, my day job is that I get to speak to people like you listening about your careers. So what you do all day and how your path is taking shape. And also experts who can give us advice on navigating all of our career firsts. Because if you haven't realized it already, there's no Career 101 class in college that will tell you what to do. A lot of it is trial and error, and I hope to help you guys along the way. And what else? I love baking.
Yes.
That's what I do outside of my day job. If you have any great recipes, please send them my way. I love to bake. I'm passing down recipes through my family, carrying on traditions. And one day, I think I'm going to do like a complete 180 and just completely become a chef. I want to go to Italy, go to culinary school.
Oh my gosh.
Don't tell my manager. Just kidding, he knows.
I would love that. And guys, please send Gianna all the recipes because that means she will make them.
Yes.
And that means that she will bring them to us.
And we'll review them maybe on the show. TBD on that. But as you can see, Jamae and I have different career experiences, and you guys are going to get to know us even more throughout the show. We're going to continue to talk about our own careers throughout different topics, and we'll even bring in experts at times who can lend their expertise.
Mm-hmm. I love that. But I want you guys to remember, this show is about y'all. This is not about me and Gianna, okay? We want to hear from you. We want to answer all of those career questions, the things that are burning in your heart, okay? If it's not indigestion, it is a career question. We want to help figure out your workplace dilemmas, and we want to hear your work stories. We want to laugh, cry, cringe, all that. So don't be shy. We want the real, unfiltered tea.
Yes, please. And you can send us your questions over email, leave us a voicemail, or message us on LinkedIn. You'll find all the ways you can reach out to us on our show page, and each week we'll address some of your questions on the show.
Okay, back to today's topic, y'all. When you're first starting out in your career, you're just looking for those opportunities to get your foot in the door. So when you are finding entry-level jobs that require all those years of experience that you don't even have, it's really discouraging. So Gianna, I want to ask you, how did you approach looking and applying for jobs? Like, what was that experience like for you?
I remember feeling so discouraged when I was looking for jobs and saw years of experience required for what were considered entry-level positions. And when I was job searching, it was mostly during my senior year. So I was like, I'm approaching graduation and I don't really know if I'm going to have a full-time job, and was just applying to like a ton of entry-level programs and internships, which already I was like, as a senior, like I'm going to be applying for internships, but I had to broaden my job search a bit. So I was full in on the job search. And when I was applying for these entry-level programs, some of them were rotational. So it was for people who were considered new grads, and that felt comfortable for sure. But I remember going for more like associate roles where maybe 2 years of experience were required. And I was like, definitely discouraged at first. And then I think what's unique about our industry is, you know, I studied journalism, and in my journalism school, I wasn't going to class learning how to be a journalist. I was, since freshman year, out doing field assignments, and like literally why I had one of my worst panic attacks ever was because of how demanding the work was outside of class. And I remember like Ubering off campus in between classes to like report. And that was all the way through senior year. I always had to be, we were always out in Syracuse reporting. So because of that, I was like, I know that I can frame these classes as actual experience and put that on my resume. So I did. And because of the competitive nature of my school, I was involved on campus in different news publications. So I had those on my resume. So I always felt like, yes, okay, maybe this requires 2 years of experience, but for the past 4 years, basically, I've been out in the field reporting and doing the thing. So I did include those on my resume starting out, which I think is something a lot of students are hesitant to do because we're not always sure how to frame that experience correctly.
Yeah, I definitely can relate. And I think that it's always a challenge to figure out how to even start the conversation when you feel like you're starting from ground zero. I thought I was in a good position by the time I had graduated. I had interned at AARP, the magazine, and 2 years. And I knew then, okay, if I'm not going to be an actor, I want to be an editor. And so I already had started to get the internship experience. And so by the time I graduated, I thought, you have a portfolio, you have your writing clips, you can do this. And it was crickets. I was applying for everywhere. I couldn't even get an internship. And it was a little jarring for me that I wasn't getting the receptiveness back from people. Or if I was getting offers, it was like, you have to start back at like being like almost even like a level below an intern, right? And I was like, how on earth am I supposed to get any experience if nobody's giving me a chance?
Yeah.
I will never forget. This was back in the day when I still used to physically send out my resume and portfolio. I would literally go to the post office and get stamps. Yep. I would package. Girl, let me tell you, before your time.
Wait,
just kidding.
You printed out your resume and mailed it?
I would print out what you would do is you would go to the library or you would look at the masthead and you would see who the editor of your department was.
Wow.
And you would address your envelope to that person. And back then, editors, editor-in-chiefs even, used to actually read these. And so you would prepare your resume, you would prepare your portfolio, maybe some writing samples in the tone of the magazine or whatever, just to give them a sense. I will never forget, I sent this out to a particular editor that I really wanted to work for. And she wrote back to me, which I was excited about, thinking, oh, you wrote back. But she said, you are really talented, but I already have a Black girl on my team. And that was such a jarring experience because, I've seen racism in all different forms of my life. But for it to be that up close and personal, like that was such a jarring experience that it actually said, you know what? I'm going to create my own platform where I can control the editorial voice, the editorial nature, and I can ensure that women who look like me are going to be represented. Because if you're going to say that to someone who you see is talented, then you don't deserve my words in the first place. And so in some ways, I kind of see that as a blessing. And in fact, I was able to start using writing samples from my website when I started applying for new jobs. And they were like, wait, you did this? And I said, yeah, I was able to do the writing. I did the research. I did the visuals. I would take my camera out on Saturdays and make my man take photos. Like I was able to show them, if you hire me, you are getting a great deal because I'm not just a writer, but I can do all these things. Yeah. And so I've always had to be very scrappy about what that early career experience can look like. But that's also why I have a really, really soft spot in my heart for all of the entrepreneurs or people who, are in that position. They're like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
My answer to that is just start. Just start.
And you're such a great example of doing the work, which I think for my year, we really realized you have to just do it yourself if you're not going to get the opportunities. And I will just say, when I was at mass applying, I received a ton of rejections.
Oh, yeah.
And no feedback. So I never really knew exactly why I was not getting these internships and jobs. So it is super discouraging. And part of that, it just feels like there's so much red tape and like hoops you have to go through to land an entry-level position. But the reality is you likely have so much more experience than you're giving yourself credit for. It's just about reflecting on your college journey or your high school journey and framing it in a way that positions you for whatever role you're applying to.
All experience is valid. And after the break, we're going to be chatting it up with HR and resume specialist Morgan Sanner. She's going to spill the tea about how you can show employers that you're the right candidate for that job, honey. Okay, Gianna, we have both talked about the first time we were ever trying to look for jobs and the experience that we needed or didn't have, and all of the highs and lows with that. But I'm sure that we're not the only ones going through this, girl. Like other people also have to be going through this. But we also need to talk to the experts who know what they're talking about. I think we have one today. Gianna, you want to introduce them?
Yes. Joining us today is Morgan Sanner. She is an HR professional and resume specialist who works with job seekers on how to optimize their resumes. She's a Gen Zer herself and is passionate about uplifting young professionals as they navigate the workforce. And if you're on TikTok, which you probably are, she goes by Resume Official, where she offers career advice and breaks down myths about Gen Z at work. My favorite. Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I like Resume Official. You telling them I'm legit. I'm the one, not the two. Okay,
that's what I was going for. I was very confusing in the beginning trying to come up with a name, but I thought, well, if they think I'm official, that certainly should help.
I love it. So, Morgan, to start us off, how would you even describe entry-level jobs these days?
Yeah, I think entry-level jobs can be tough to get. I actually have my younger sister just graduated from undergrad and is trying to find her first position in marketing. So the job market is definitely challenging for that demographic right now. And I think, too, there's this confusion about what entry-level truly means, because I think on the job seeker side, and it makes sense to me that we would believe that would mean no experience. But unfortunately, when you look at applicant tracking systems or any job boards, they don't really have a section that is dedicated to no experience. So unfortunately, everything kind of has to fall into entry level. So usually I've seen that be 7 years or less. Sometimes it's 5 years or less. And that can be really frustrating for job seekers because there's no true way to filter out jobs that are really looking for no experience.
That's so true. I remember when I was job seeking like 3 years ago now, and I was looking at job postings, I thought whatever is listed on this job ad is an absolute requirement. Like I need to check every single box to be considered qualified for the job. I'm wondering from you, as somebody who works in HR and as a resume writer, what's your take on job descriptions? Are they a non-negotiable list of requirements or more of a wish list?
That can really depend on the industry. There are some roles where if they are working with the government or contracted with the government in some way, they can be 100% requirements. There are others where it can absolutely be a wish list, where if you see the section that says prefer to have, those are absolutely not necessary. They're nice to have, but you definitely don't need them. So I think it's great if you match 70% and up. I would tend to apply just because you never know. They might take a chance. And you don't know which of those, I'll say quote unquote requirements, are actually requirements for that hiring manager.
I think that's really important because I think a lot of people, when you are applying, you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to land a job to get the experience, but I need the experience to land the job. It's like a chicken or an egg, like which one comes first? And that starts to knock your confidence. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like when I was like first graduating and I couldn't get a job to save my life, I was just sleeping, having panic attacks, like armpits sweaty, 24/7, cortisol levels up. It was just not sexy whatsoever. So Morgan, what advice would you give to people who are talking themselves out of applying because they think that they're not going to get it or they think that the opportunity isn't theirs? Like, how do you overcome this mental trap, honestly, of applying, rejection, experience, jobs, everything?
Oh, yeah. I could probably do a whole TED Talk on this, but there are so many clients that I've seen. I would say almost every client I've ever had has believed that they were not qualified for the roles that they were applying for. It doesn't matter if they were the past CEO, if they had a very successful business, they all believe in some way that they are not the right person for the role and that nobody would ever pick them. So that's very common. And if your fellow job seekers are feeling that, you're definitely not alone. The only difference between the person who doesn't get the job and the person who gets the job is usually who applies. Because usually the qualifications and the experience levels are very, very, very competitive, especially in this market where we have so many amazing people that are unfortunately unemployed after we saw all of these layoffs these past couple of years.
Yeah, I think a lot about that quote. What is it? Like you miss 100% of the shots you never take. So sometimes you just got to get out there. And I know like for me, the initial jobs that I applied for that I didn't get were also really great experiences for me to learn how to improve, whether it was my cover letter or my resume or my interview skills. I don't like to see anything as wasted experience. And so I really appreciate you saying that because, yeah, a lot of this does come down to mentally putting yourself out there and being okay with whatever happens, but knowing that the first step is putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rejection is scary, but it's better than you rejecting yourself.
Ooh, yeah, self-rejection. I think it's important too to acknowledge like there's an opportunity gap when it comes to experience. So a lot of people aren't able to take unpaid internships, which whole other topic we could talk about,
Another
or
TED Talk.
take whole TED Talk,
Mhm.
or take risks to really build their resume. So what's your advice for people who don't have, traditional work experience in their desired field that they're interested in?
Oh, yeah. It's all about selling yourself and branding, because when you're graduating college, especially, a lot of people probably don't have direct experience in the field that they'll be applying to. So it's really about taking the experience that you do have and selling it in a way where you're really highlighting those transferable skills and talking about what problems you were able to solve for them. And I've also had people who didn't have any work during college. So we actually took their student experience and we wrote that as if it were a full-time job. So we're talking about the research that they're doing, the teams that they're working on, all the other assignments that they did do that were related to that field. I don't know if it was just my college, but we had opportunities in my classes to actually work with local businesses. And those are really like small scale consulting projects if you allow yourself to think of it that way.
Yeah, that's so true. You mentioned taking transferable skills and selling them on your resume. And that kind of brings us to our segment, Dear Work Bestie, where we answer questions from our listeners. And this week we have a question from Samuel in Colorado. Let's take a listen.
So I have been finishing up my shared coursework for an accelerated Master's of Science in Global Health. I have just completed my degree requirements for my Bachelor's of Science in the same field with a minor in sustainability and a certificate in evolutionary medicine. I'm currently searching for jobs or internships in hopes of transitioning out of Starbucks and into something I have a little bit more passion for. I've been trying to get my resume polished and looking nice as I start this next part of my journey. And something that I think I would benefit the most from is understanding what a recent graduate should do and prioritize in order to land one of those really good internships or entry-level positions that would really help get their foot in the door. Thank you so much.
So Samuel, first of all, shout out to you, bestie. Okay, you are educated. You got that Master's of Science in Global Health. Honey, we need it right about now, okay? So Samuel is already doing well with the education part. But now we are hitting this obstacle where he's working at Starbucks and it doesn't exactly translate to the field that he's really passionate about. So let's start super easy for our bestie, Samuel. Morgan, what advice would you give to Samuel on how to use the experience he has to apply for the jobs in his field of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first thoughts that came to mind was because it sounds like the work experience that this person does have is within a non-relevant field, so at Starbucks. So I like to lay the resume out in terms of most relevant down to least relevant. So in this instance, I might not even put Starbucks on there. I would maybe put other work experience and put, barista, Starbucks, and the dates, and that's it. Not even add any bullet points. And then we can really focus the upper half of the resume on the skills and the coursework that you've done, especially if you've done any projects that are directly within the field or if you have any publications that relate to the jobs that you're looking for. I try to work in terms of most important, the things that you absolutely cannot let the recruiter miss, down to least important.
Yeah. Since he's a recent grad, what are things that he should be thinking about as he's applying for jobs? I mean, you've already broken down sort of what the resume should look like, but what are some other things that Samuel should be thinking about as they continue to apply for different opportunities?
I would say marketing yourself on LinkedIn, as well as possibly building out a portfolio if you do have any publications or any kind of work that could be uploaded. Those are always really great just to see samples of your actual work. Another thing I've had past clients do is they will find ways to start freelancing or just taking on small projects, because sometimes, they can't afford to hire somebody full time with those kind of skills, but they might have a small research project that's only a couple of months. So possibly going outside of just looking at full-time work, which does stink. You want a permanent solution so you're not job searching again a few months later. But sometimes it really is just getting your foot in the door and getting some of those work experiences under your belt first.
Yeah.
That's such good advice. And I can relate to Samuel because when I started out on my resume, maybe I shouldn't have had it on, but I did put that I worked at an ice cream shop for like 4 years. And I was in a management role there, which like sounded so flashy at the time. And I was like, you know what? They're like trusting me to close. Like I'm working like the cash register. Like I'm working with all this cash. So I do think there's a huge benefit of at least speaking to those customer facing roles in the interview, or maybe there's transferable skills. Like, I'm sure you're a great listener because you're taking people's orders, you're building relationships, and you know a lot about the products at Starbucks. So I'm sure like he can take kind of those skills as well and speak to them in the interview, even if it's not on his resume, because there's a lot of value in those customer facing roles. And I think we tend to discount that when we're starting out because we're like, oh, it's not related to what I want to do. But really, employers like to hear that stuff. And maybe they worked at Starbucks, or like, then it starts a whole conversation about like their favorite drink. I was talking about ice cream in interviews. Like, it just broke the ice, and it helped us create bonds. So I think that's really good advice to kind of at least, think about the coursework that's relevant and how you can gain experience outside of, traditional work experience. And then also maybe speaking to this in the interview or, cover letter, whatever it might be.
Love that advice. So would you recommend if, like, for instance, Samuel or anyone else out there who's just starting out, that they look at the job description and make sure that, at least from the skills perspective, that everything in there is included in some way, shape, or form in the resume?
Oh, yes. I've probably said this sentence in more of my videos than any other. And it's that if it is in the job description, it has to be in your resume if you have that skill or have done that responsibility, because the recruiter's never going to make positive assumptions for you because they don't know you. They haven't met you. They have this piece of paper and that's how they get to know you. I had an engineer once who was specifically working in Python and was looking for roles that were heavily using Python. His resume did not say Python anywhere. And when I asked why, he said, well, I thought it was obvious. And I think especially when it comes to technical people, we forget that the recruiters have not done the jobs that they are hiring for. They have done recruitment. So if you don't say it and you don't point it out, they're going to assume you don't have it.
Wow. I hope everyone heard that, because I definitely would leave things out and be like, well, of course I would have it. Why else would I be applying to this role?
I still leave things out now. Like, we just naturally assume, oh, right, the person would just know. No, they don't, baby. It's like if someone likes you, like, they can't just assume that, you like them. You got to tell them.
Oh, God. This has got me thinking now as we talk about skills. I see this a lot on LinkedIn debate on how to add skills to your resume. Do you recommend a completely separate skills section or weaving in those skills as keywords throughout your experience section in the bullet points?
So I prefer both. I will say for the skills section, I usually call it core competencies. And I really try to focus on the hard skills. So when I say that, it's not to say that soft skills are not important, because they are. But a lot of times, I can't tell you how many resumes I've seen where it has a skills section. It says things like leadership, detail orientation, communication, just those things that we assume you have, to be in the workforce, no matter what role it is, you have to have good communication skills. And if you think of how recruiters might use the search functionality in an applicant tracking system, if I'm trying to slim down my list of 1,000 resumes and I'm looking for someone that has Python skills, what are the odds I'm going in and typing in communication? Probably very slim to none. So think about what skills you would search for if you were applying to this role. And the other thing, when it comes to the bullet points, I like to use what's called the WHO format. It stands for what did you do, how did you do it, and what was the outcome? And the how did you do it, I think, is very often missed because that's where people make assumptions. So the other day I had a client that said, I built the client's website. And I said, okay, what goes into that? And then all of a sudden it's all this requirements gathering. You have to understand what system and framework they use in their website, their sales system. There's so much that goes into designing a website that when you just say you develop a website, it leaves a lot up to assumption and a lot of your hard work gets left on the table. So it's important to do a little bit of both.
Yes, don't leave your hard work on the table. And I love that framework. I think Jamae and I are going to have to go look at our resumes after this.
Yeah. Morgan, can you just elaborate just a little bit more on the WHO method? Only because I'm thinking a lot about how a lot of people, myself included, sometimes struggle with quantifying the experience or quantifying the impact. And from the WHO method, it seems like even if there are no numbers to support it, there's still qualitative things that you can share that really gets to show that impact. And I'm thinking a lot for early career professionals, that really being something that they can lean into. Can you maybe give a couple more tips on how we can incorporate the WHO, asking for a friend?
Oh, yes. This is probably the second most common thing I say on my page. And it's that at the end of the day, you've always had an impact whether you realize it or not. So if my clients are really struggling with this, I play a little game called What If You Vanished? So let's pretend you're a customer service representative and all of a sudden you don't go to work. And not only that, but your coworkers actually can't step in for you. So now all of a sudden, there have been 50 customers that haven't been able to check out. That's $10,000 of merchandise that wasn't sold. The truck wasn't unloaded. Now there's how many items that are not on the sales floor. It doesn't matter that that wouldn't actually happen and that your coworkers would step in for you because it's your resume. You're selling yourself. So I would start there. Just think about what would happen if I didn't show up. And another tip I use is if you just go to ChatGPT, ask it, what metrics can I use as this person? It'll give you hundreds of examples if you need that many.
Oh, I love that. What if I just disappeared for a day? What would happen?
What if I did move to Switzerland and open a coffee shop? What if I did that? I don't know.
We talked a lot about building a resume, and that's a big part of the job search process. First, finding jobs, going through the job description, then you create your applications, you apply, you interview. It's a lot. And I hear from a lot of new grads, especially on LinkedIn, that they're applying to like 100 jobs and not hearing back, which is so discouraging. So I'm wondering, what's your advice to people like them who have applied to a ton of jobs, haven't had much luck hearing back from employers? What should they be doing?
It is important to acknowledge that the job market is not the best right now. So it is absolutely possible that your resume could be in the best shape it's going to be, and you might still not hear back. At that point, though, I would start to consider switching strategies, whether it be applying for roles that maybe you weren't initially considering. So maybe expanding your range. This happens a lot, too, where some companies just have weird job titles, quite frankly. So you might need to scale back and maybe use less words, search for the most simplistic job title that you can think of, because sometimes there's some hidden gems in there. And then you might also consider looking at your resume, just maybe getting a second opinion on it from somebody within your field, especially, and just making sure that at the end of the day, when you look at your resume and you look at the job description, when you think, do I look qualified for this role? The answer is yes. The answer needs to be yes.
Yeah, definitely. So we're talking a lot about experience, but Morgan, we got to send you out on a spicy note. Okay, I have a couple things. First of all, what is the wildest thing you have ever seen on a resume? And have you ever seen people lie to get their first job?
I've definitely seen people lie, and I think a lot of people unfortunately don't know about background checks and how thorough those can be, especially when it comes to job titles and education. Those will be checked. Please do not lie about those. And the craziest thing I've ever seen on a resume, it was somebody who was in graphic design, and it was the weirdest resume I've ever seen in my life. There was in the middle a circle pie chart, and it had broken down how he spent his day down to like sleeping. So it said like 8 hours of sleep. I spend some time doing this. This is when I make dinner. And then on the outskirts of the resume were his actual experiences, I'll say, quote unquote, because they still were not super related to the job. I was just incredibly confused. I also one time had somebody send in a W-2 instead of a resume. So that was was not good either.
You guys, I'm turning red. At least with the pie chart, he should have put like his roles and responsibilities in the chart, and then everything else secondary. Like, don't make the main bread and butter your sleep and food and rest and everything.
He was like, you guys can take away that I sleep 8 hours a day. I'm a well-rested candidate. That's what my takeaway was.
Honestly, I'm jealous of his 8 hours. But
I know. It was a very balanced day.
That is balanced. Those are really good examples of what not to do. And you shared so much great advice on what you should be doing. So I hope everybody finds this conversation super valuable. I know they will. Morgan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was great.
That was so much fun, but we got more to come. So stick around because we'll be right back after the break.
Wow, Gianna. Morgan was dope.
I loved her advice.
I loved her advice, and she gave me so much to think about. So, okay, a couple of takeaways that I took was, first of all, you got to get into the business of highlighting yourself like a salesperson. You are your best advocate. And then I loved that she referenced the WHO method because I think especially for early career professionals or people who are navigating in new spaces, you may not have the data points yet to back up what you're doing, but you at least have the insight to know the impact of what you are doing. So really focusing on those things. And those are things I'm taking with myself. I'm going to give my resume a nice little, spruce, a little
Refresh.
facelift, a little Botox this weekend. What about you? What did you take away?
Listen, my resume is collecting dust, which it should not be, but we got to get in there and refresh it. But I totally agree. I loved all of those tactical tips she shared. I really love that she emphasized this idea that you need to broaden your definition of experience. If you're thinking about just what jobs have I had that are relevant to the field I'm going into, you might not have anything to put on your resume. But when you think back and you spend some time reflecting, okay, what courses did I take? What projects in those courses, really stood out to me? And maybe I did a senior capstone that I can speak to. What volunteer work did I do? What clubs were I involved in? There's probably so many things you have done throughout your college experience in and out of school that you can frame as actual work experience once you reflect on them. And I think with that framing, which she mentioned, is including metrics, so important, and telling a story. Instead of just listing your responsibilities on your resume, share actual anecdotes about that time when you and your team had to build a capstone project, right? And I think that's what really resonates. Everyone loves to hear stories. And that is what's important, right? Your resume isn't going to speak for itself. You have to then sell yourself in an interview or in your networking, in your outreach to make these connections with humans, right?
Yeah, definitely. All great takeaways. Oh, I love Morgan.
Me too. And I want to give a quick shout out to Samuel for sending us his question. Now, if you're like Samuel and you have a burning question that you want Jamae and I to answer on the show,
Which I know you do.
please tell us. You can leave us a voicemail, send us an email, or message us on LinkedIn. All the information on how you can reach out to us is in the show description.
Now, Gianna, let's do something a little different.
I'm ready.
I am really excited for this next segment, which I think is going to get a little controversial. It's going to get the girls talking, okay? This is called Cool or Cringe. We're going to be sharing our takes on a topic that's going to change out each week and deciding if it's cool or cringe. What do you have this week?
Okay, it's 85 degrees today. So the topic is shorts at the office. And the reason I bring this up is because in some industries, like you work a finance job, I'm sure people would not imagine wearing shorts to the office. But in more casual workplaces like LinkedIn, I see shorts all the time. So I'm wondering, what's your take, cool or cringe?
Child, the first time I ever brought my mom up in here, she was like, this is how people dress. I mean, she wore like a suit every day because she worked in the government. So she was very like, oh, this is strange. I like a little short moment, but okay, so you need to look at the inseams.
Okay.
All right. There's a certain level of your kneecap.
Your fashion expert is coming out.
Because I think what ends up happening is if I'm seeing too much of your kneecap,
Okay.
that's what I'm starting to
Kneecap?
get. Yes, your shorts
Sorry,
need to...
let me.
No, your shorts need to like cover some of that. Like, because once we get past your kneecap, we get a little, so that's when we start getting into interesting territory. And then interesting territory becomes hoochie daddy short season. And I'm all for us tapping into our inner city boys and city girls. But do we really need to do that right now when we're talking about roles and responsibilities and the agenda?
Right.
Is the agenda what we did on Friday night down at the club?
Right.
So to me, I like shorts, but they can't be too short. Leave that for the streets.
So you're talking like a dad short you're fine with.
I'm good with a dad short or like a seasoned auntie short.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
So I have worn shorts to the office. Disclaimer, I was going to wear them today, but I wanted it to be a safe space for everyone to talk about them. So my thing is I don't own shorts that are going to hit my kneecap. But I will follow my high school dress code rule of fingertips. So like I'll stand straight. If my shorts touch my fingertips,
Oh, I hated that rule because I have such long
I'm
arms.
traumatized.
It's so
I'm
bad.
traumatized. No, it's ingrained in me. So if they're that long, I will wear them.
Yes.
Like the ones I have worn in the past. I only have one pair that are office appropriate, if you will. But obviously it depends on your workplace. Like LinkedIn is a bit more casual, so you can get away with it.
Yeah.
I've seen sweat shorts And I'm not going to say that's my vibe. If it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah.
But I personally would not wear sweatshorts to work.
Yeah. How do you feel about the shorts and blazer ratio thing? Because I've seen people with
Okay.
like a long sleeve blazer
Yeah.
and then shorts that are actual shorts.
It's business up top, party
Party on the bottom.
I mean, it's a look. I would consider wearing it. I don't
Yeah.
think I think it's a good blend. What I'm not here for is the whole trend of micro shorts. Like, I just cannot.
Oh, baby, that was never going to be
It's
my
underwear.
portion because, first of all, I'm a cutie with a booty, okay? If I was
It's not
walking down the
happening.
hallway, it's not going to happen. What I will say is if you feel comfortable going into a meeting with a senior leader or executive, like if someone said right now, go present to your manager's manager.
I'm not wearing shorts.
And if you feel good in that outfit, cool. If you have to second guess yourself,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's when you maybe consider having maybe options
Yeah.
at the office. I always have a nice little blazer in my
Oh.
little, yeah, girl,
Good
just
to
in case.
know in case I ever need.
Look, there have been some trauma stories that we can talk about.
We'll
Fashion
unpack that
trauma
later.
stories. Yeah.
Okay, so I think the consensus is they can be appropriate if they're the certain length, and it depends on the day. Maybe it's like a casual Friday, you wear your shorts. But of course, like we said, it depends on you, your workplace, all of those things.
Yeah.
And we want to know your take. So let us know
Please,
online. What do
please.
you think about shorts in the office? Yes, no, cool, cringe?
No, seriously, because now Gianna and I are very passionate about this, and I need to see if other people, if the collective feels it. Hit us up on LinkedIn, y'all. Hop in our in-mails, okay? It goes down in the in-mails, okay? Gianna and I want to hear from you, not just about cool or cringe and maybe some other parts of the segment that we can talk about. So if you have something else you want to throw to us, hit us up there.
Yes, please do. Okay, guys, thanks so much for joining us this week. This was such a fun episode, and shout out to Morgan for joining us on the show. You guys can follow our newsletter. It's called Let's Talk Offline, where we go even deeper into the topics we discuss on the pod, share some exclusive content, and talk back and forth in real time. Need I say more?
Yes.
So come join our community. The link to the newsletter will be in the show description and also in my LinkedIn bio.
Yes. I mean, Morgan was awesome, but also shout out to Samuel for your amazing question this week. You guys, you can be just like Samuel and you can also send us your questions. Information on how to do that is in the show description. If you want to know where to do this, look in the description of the show. The show description has everything.
One last thing, make sure you guys are following the show. Also, rate and review so other people like you can find us. We'll catch you back here next week. Remember, we've always got your back. So if something comes up in the meantime, let's talk offline. I'm Gianna Prudenti.
And I'm Jamae Jackson Gadsden. Stay thriving.
Let's Talk Offline is a production of LinkedIn News and iHeart Podcasts. The show is produced by Western Sound. Our producer is Sabrina Fang. The show is edited by Savannah Wright. Our associate producer is Sarah Deely. Alex McInnes is our engineer. And Ben Adair is the executive producer.
Executive producers at iHeart Podcasts are Katrina Norvell and Nikki Ettore. We got support from LinkedIn's Jesse Hempel, Sarah Storm, and Ayana Angel. Maya Pope Chappelle is Director of Content. Dave Pond is Head of News Production. Courtney Coop is Head of Original Programming. And Dan Roth is the Editor-in-Chief of LinkedIn.